face to face and feel the chill. Nightfall covers me, but you know the plans I'm making still oversee. Could it be the whole of opening wide? A sacred why, a mystery gaping inside. The weekends why, until we dance into the fire. That fatal kiss is all we need. Dance into the fire to fatal sounds of broken dreams. Dance into the fire. That fatal kiss is all we need. Dance into the fire.
Hey, Malice, not here either. I'm busy with relatives last week. He cuts off mental communication, and now he's not even around anymore. I was sworn he was here just a moment ago, but he instantly teleports off again. What the hell is he up to anyway? Oh well. Hey, Cambot, I guess we gotta get this thing going, right? Well, whatever then, I guess. Since Malice isn't here, I guess it's up to me to do the review on my own this time. It's been a while since I've done a solo review. Where did we leave off? Oh yes, House 2. So yeah, we left off of music, which we did not cover for the first house. So we're going to cover music a little bit first, before we talk a little bit about plot and some other opinions about the movie at the end. Deal? So the music for both movies is actually pretty darn good. The first movie is a little more of what you expect out of a horror movie, but the second movie has so many interesting and bizarre little things going on throughout the entire film that they really had to make some big grandiose themes for every single intricate scene. So the fact that they were able to do that and have such an extraordinary range in music is actually kind of startling and not normal for, especially for an 80s film. Usually they have one theme and they kind of usually stuck to it as long as it actually fit the theme of the actual movie. So then the plot and basics for House 2. House 2 is not exactly a sequel. It's more of a sequel in name, although it is based around a house. This being actually a small mansion or a large house. Either way you look at it, it's based around a building. The main character in this one, and pardon me if I can't remember names because they're such generic names, but the main character in this one is the great-great-grandson of a old Western Jesse James type of character who essentially robbed a lot of his goods and became a big name for some odd reason. I don't know why his stuff wasn't taken back, but, you know, the Wild West. As he is preparing to move into this house because of hard times, he is realizing that there's a possibility of yet hidden fortunes with his family members, including his great-great-grandfather, who at one point had one of the crystal skulls. So this, I believe his name is Jesse now that I think of it. Anyway, the main character and his buddy head off to the graveyard where his great-great-grandfather is buried and go to dig him up in hopes of finding this crystal skull, which would be worth a small fortune at the very least, and possibly turn around their ill fortune and major loss of money and having to sell out pretty much everything he owns in order to move out to this mansion. Upon digging up the great-great-grandfather, they do find the skull, but seconds later they are grabbed by the corpse of the great-great-grandfather! And actually, instead of trying to constantly call him great-great-grandfather, I am actually going to call him by his nickname in the movie, Gramps, for short. Gramps starts off as what could be possibly a really frightening character, but he very quickly does turn things around a little bit. He is still a walking, living, breathing corpse, but he's by no means as bad as his first little intro sequence pans him out to be. And, matter of fact, he becomes one of the better characters throughout the film. And this is pretty much where I have to do the cutoff point, because from here, if you're going to be watching this or not, there are a ton of plot twists that start up within the first half hour of the movie. A lot of this movie is people venturing off and trying to get the skull back. I'll put it very bluntly for that. But there are so many different ways that they make this interesting and put a little twist on it that it does keep you invested in the film throughout. And they also keep introducing new small characters that will stay for the rest of the film. Now, with that being said, we should talk about the characters a little bit, and I'll actually use the wiki to actually look up some information so I can give you a few names other than just Gramps. Our main character is played by Arya Gross. His character's name is Jesse. Jesse's actor here has a few interesting little tidbits to his name, including The Exterminator 2, as well as one of his better-known, more recent films in 2002, being Minority Report. He has a few other films to his name, but not much in the realm of my knowledge, so he still acts, and he's actually still doing a few more recently, but not in my line of usual stuff to watch, I'm afraid. As Jesse, though, he does pull off a fairly competent job as the straight man who's reacting to everything around him. And for what it's worth, he does a really good job and becomes a decent character still by the end, which is hard to do apparently these days in horror movies. Jesse's really close friend Charlie is played by Jonathan Stark. He doesn't actually have any actor biography whatsoever on Wikipedia. I'm not entirely sure what's up with that. Most actors usually have something, but I have nothing to base this guy on. But the fact that he apparently does have a little tiny listing for a couple TV show or two tends to make me believe that he kind of left movies and went on to just do small screen, and I guess as long as he's happy with it, more power to him. Also, I noticed on his wiki page that he's about 62 at this point, so yeah, this movie was quite a while ago, wasn't it? Like, they were probably in their 20s, 30s when they made this film? Yeah. Another small character to mention before I get to Gramps is John, played by Bill Maher. Bill Maher is kind of a surprise out-of-nowhere character for this movie, but apparently back in the 80s, his big shtick was asshole corporate types. So I can kind of understand why he left acting and went on to pursue comedic acts as well as his current talk show. And all the power to him, because they're probably just trying to typecast him into being the asshole for the rest of his acting career anyways. And if it's something that went against the grain in what he believed in acting like, then I can kind of see why he wanted to stop it. And, yeah. But that being said, he does an excellent asshole in this movie. And as another reviewer actually mentioned, he actually walks away with not only one gal, but two gals at the end of this movie, and you'll see it. You'll see it if you watch this film. He is the biggest sleazeball in the universe, and he manages to walk away with two of the main girls in this film. Mind blown. And while I did mention the girlfriends, they're kind of secondary note. They have a tiny little subplot that just is quickly swiped away and forgotten about, to be honest. Even though the actresses come off very confident, and I'm pretty sure I've seen at least one of them more than once, they're just kind of secondary note in this film. They really don't do anything to help carry the film. They, at best, pad it. So, But also, one more character I need up before Gramps is Bill the repairman. Bill is played by John Ratzenberger, best known as Cliff from the TV show Cheers, which makes another weird connection between these two movies, that both of them have at least one actor from Cheers for some reason. I'm not entirely sure what to read into that. But aside from the weird Cheers cameos, as I previously mentioned, we really need to talk about Gramps. Gramps is really kind of an interesting character in this film. Gramps is played by Royal Dano, a man who, since about the 50s, has had a massive collection of acting roles, both in TV as well as in particular in film. He would do anything from just small little cameo roles to these huge characters that would actually be in for a majority of a film. But of all of his roles, and I remember him from quite a few things, Dark Half, Twin Peaks, he was a big character in Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but the one movie I definitely do remember him for is this movie in particular, and it's really kind of odd because you actually don't get a very good look at his face in this movie. He's under tons and tons of makeup, but the thing that really drives it through, though, is that he's such a good old man actor that he takes a character like Gramps and he somehow seems to connect somehow. He somehow manages to find this old man that not only do you enjoy hanging around with, but you enjoy watching his antics as he's becoming used to this new world that he's been sleeping through all these ages. And this is probably one of his best, longest lasting, and most memorable characters, I think, in my opinion. It's only a pity that the actor decided to stop in like the 80s and 90s. He was actually starting to hit into some stuff that I really quite enjoyed him in at the time, and House 2 in particular was a joy to watch him in.
However, it must be noted that Royal Edward Dano did, however, die May 15th, 1994, so he did stop acting at least a couple of years before his passing on. Though I would add that I believe that at the age of 71, he was still kind of a little bit in his prime yet. He still had maybe a good 5 to 9 years yet that, at least for most people, would be considered a good run.
But, what can you do? Don't want to end this on a sad note. This movie is one of his best, and this movie has such a weird, huge premise that I really can't do it justice in a review, to be honest. It's really, really, really darn good. It is worth your time. It is worth your little bit of patience. It's not even actually a horror movie like the first House movie was. It actually tries to lean away from the horror bits a bit more and tries to be a comedy more or less. And as a PG-13, PG-ish horror comedy action mix-up, only the 80s could provide us with a movie this good. I don't know why. But in general, yeah, House 1 is a pretty decent horror movie. House 2, while not a straight-up horror movie like the first entry, it's still a pretty damn good movie. I would highly recommend it for pretty much anybody. There are a few moments of shock, surprise, and a little bit of horror, but there's just as much comedy and good-natured ribbing going on, too. So, with that out of the way, I think we're kind of done with this review. So I'm wondering where the hell Malice is.